Today I want to build something completely new. If I look over here, this is how I want the facade to look, and the general idea here is that it's a Shulker box vending machine. So ideally what you would do if this was all working is you'd come up here, you'd hit the note block for whatever color of Shulker box you want. The Shulker box would dispense it here, so you get a nice little display model, and then whenever you're ready to buy it, you'd press this button. The piston would send it down and maybe it'll shoot it up in a dispenser right around here or something like that. Maybe we have a dispenser right here, for example, and it gives you that shulker. And then, of course, if you change it, it doesn't give it to you, but it will change the display shulker right here. So I've written out that process here. If the selector panel is pressed, we break the shulker, send it back to a central storage. We retrieve a new shulker from our central storage, and then we dispense that shulker. Sounds simple here, but I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do this. It turns out what we're looking for is something called a button selector panel, so I thought that would be a good idea to start with. This is a design by Samos the Sage. So let's go ahead and analyze how this works. Hey, it's Editor Grumby. So I do an awful job of explaining how this works here. It was my first time working with the button selection panel. I figured I'd explain how it works now instead, so it makes a little more sense. Before we get started, I highly recommend you check out Jazzy Red's video on RS NOR latches if you want to get really in-depth on this stuff. It's a great video, that's how I learned how to do most of this. First thing you need to build a button selector panel is a panel of buttons. In Samos the Sage's design, we also have lights here to show you what is selected, but these are optional. Now, the idea behind a button selection panel is that you can only select one option at a time. An example use case of this could be a bamboo farm where you want to craft either raw bamboo, bamboo blocks, stripped planks, or mosaic planks. In this case, you would click one button to cause the farm to craft one of these materials. In this design, we achieve this by using a system of droppers and comparators. By default, the items are in the back line of droppers next to the blue wool. We can select an output by moving that item from the blue line of droppers up to the red line, usually done by pressing a button. The problem is, we can still select various other options, and we also have no way of sending the items back to the blue line of droppers. We can solve this by adding a reset line like the one we have here, but in Samos's design, we make things a little more compact by moving the reset line over here and switching which dropper is the output and which is the default. In this case, we move all of the items over to these droppers, activating these comparators, and then we can switch them just by adding redstone torches. And this design is actually really smart because if you think about the order of operations, when we select a new item, the first thing we need to do is reset the current selection. So having the reset line closer to the selection panel ends up being a really good design choice. After we've reset the line, then all we need to do is send a signal to one of these droppers here, which will then deactivate this comparator, turning on this redstone torch, and this is where we get our signal from. In Samos's design, we achieve this by first powering a block above the global reset line, then using another set of repeaters to power an opaque block to a note block, powering the blue line of droppers, sending one item into a dropper in the red line. And this design is very intentional. I've slowed down the tick rate. Watch what happens when I unfreeze here. As we discussed, we first activate our global reset line, and then using the power of the repeater, block, note block combo, activate only one dropper from our selection here. We won't get into the weeds of how exactly this part of the circuit works here, but just know it has something to do with something called quasi-connectivity, and the note block here helps to update the dropper so that it will move that item over into the red line. And what makes this design even better is the fact that comparators can read through solid blocks. This means by adding a line of comparators beneath our repeaters here, we have a useful user interface that tells us which option is selected at any given point. Now in our case, the user feedback is going to be switching out the shulker box, so we won't be using this functionality here, but it's useful to know for your own selection panels, so I thought I'd include it here. This has been Redstone Basics with Grumby. If I got anything wrong here, go ahead and drop it down in the comments. This should be a pretty good explanation of what we're looking at here. Yeah, so if you like that section, let me know. Maybe we'll do more of them. For now, we have to get back to designing our own selection panel.
All right, after a lot of trial and error, this is what I've come up with. And I mean a lot of trial and error. I'll show you some of the other builds that I came up with before this.
Well, actually, I'll just show you this one. This is the major one I thought I was going to go with until I posted this video on Reddit and somebody told me, nah, you've got too many toggleable states in there. It still works, like you can see it's working. It's just very, very slow, and you'll see in a second, but it's so slow compared to the current design. I also struggled to make these spam proof, so if I spam this here, you'll see it's gonna break, and it breaks in really weird ways. I have no idea why. Still don't know why. It's probably something to do with the copper bulbs, though.
Yeah, so this is definitely the best one yet. The only issue with it is it's not really spam proof. I'm not exactly sure why. So if anybody is watching this and you know why this isn't spam proof, it would be really helpful. We can see that it switches the light. If I press one over here, it's hooked up to all 16, right? So you can only choose one option. If I choose one on the bottom, I'll choose that. Same if I choose one over here on the bottom. Come back around here. And like I said, not spam proof. So if I go ahead and I just like press a bunch of these, see, it kind of works sometimes, but then sometimes it'll glitch out. So it's like semi spam proof, I would say. All right. So again, the idea here is that when we press the buy button, it'll crush this shulker here and then dispense it to us. If we hit one of these buttons, it should still crush the dispenser here, but then it will send it back to our central storage. So now we got to figure out how to do that. This central rail right here will activate no matter what button we press. So I think a good way to start is by maybe sending a pulse to the piston this way. I don't think this will interfere with anything. Let's try that. So now, whenever we press a button, it will activate our piston. So that's good.
Yep, that's great, but we still got to figure out what to do with the shulkers after they've been broken. So my idea was to use minecarts.
Down here, I want to build a minecart loader. I think the idea is the shulker will get crushed into these hoppers here, and that'll come down into, let me go ahead and place our chest minecart here. That'll come down into our chest minecart, which is going to sit here. The hoppers will then load the chest minecart with one shulker, which this will detect and then set it free. So I think that will work for us. The next thing we need to figure out is switching the track. So if we bought it, it will go to, let me show you this here. If we bought it, it will go this way. And if we didn't buy it, it'll go this way to storage. All right, so that's the idea. Now I got to figure out how to implement that. Okay, I've come up with a very strange system. We're going to use a fun little leaf stone hack here because I don't want any of these redstone components interfering with each other. So fun fact, if you don't know this, when a log touches leaves, it will send an update through the whole line of leaves. My only concern with this is that it's going to be too long, but what it's going to do is it'll move this redstone block. If I go ahead and remove this, you see it'll switch the path here. When the minecart goes over here, it'll update this and put the redstone block back. So we're always going to go this way unless we've selected one of these note blocks here. Okay, let's go ahead and test this out. If I press this button here, it should go this way. All right, sweet, that one works. And when I select one of these note blocks, it should crush it and then send it down the opposite way. Let's click that one. All right, my bad. I realized something about leafstone that I didn't know. It only goes out to a maximum of 6 blocks. So this should work. Let's try it again. Here we go. Okay, so I changed things up a little bit because the detector rail was too close over here. I think this will work. I'll hit this note block. comes down this way, switches the track, and boom, it'll pull it back over so the track switches back this way. So I think this is working. All right, we have a small problem with the track switching, and some of you probably spotted this before I did. If we hit one of these note blocks, the chest minecart is not going to be sent because we don't have any shulkers up there, so our detector rail isn't going to activate the comparator, right? However, it will still, since this is running from a different line, activate this system, and the result is that this gets stuck over here and the track is switched in the wrong direction now. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to build a quick monostable circuit here, which will... Sorry about that. What we're going to do is build a quick monostable circuit here, which will activate on a timer, regardless of whether the chest minecart gets sent or not. So we can actually do away with this detector rail here. If that didn't make any sense to you, congratulations, you're a sane person. Basically, we're just putting it on a timer so the track will always reset regardless of the cart. We need a falling edge monostable circuit, so that means it requires a redstone torch here. I think we want this right here. We'll put a redstone dust here. Then we'll have a piston right here, sticky piston. My bad, this was getting powered by this block over here, so we actually can't put the piston there. We're going to put the piston here instead, widened it out a little bit. So now, if we go ahead and replace this leaf block, it'll move the redstone block over. Eventually this will empty out, moves it back over, and that's this reset. So to show you that in action, I've got a green shulker here. It works if there is a shulker. See, that gets sent off, and it gets pulled back right at the right time. And it works if you don't have a shulker in it. So if I click this here, the minecart's not going to get sent out, but that's okay because this will still get reset now. Monostable circuits. And now, of course, we got to explain how getting the shulker works. If we click the buy button, you should see it pop out right here. A little bit of a delay, but it's about the showmanship, right? When the chest minecart passes over this hopper, it'll dispense whatever item it has into this dropper here. That'll then activate this dispenser, which has an empty bucket in it, that will remove or replace this source water block, which will update our bubble column. All of our observers will sense that update, power this dropper line here, and then drop it back to us through this dispenser in the ceiling. One thing I should point out are these two observers here. This is pretty odd. What this is going to do is pulse this dropper twice, which isn't ideal, but it will also pulse this dropper at the right time, which is why I added it. If it was one wider, this wouldn't be as big of a deal, but this is what we're working with right now, and I didn't feel like moving the dropper elevator over one. Oh, and I forgot to mention the dropper elevator was designed by Cubic Meter. So with that squared away, we just needed to design the central storage system, which, needless to say, I made some major mistakes on. Oh, I made a very dumb mistake. I somehow forgot that shulker boxes are unstackable, so I was trying to design an item filter to sort them out, but of course, this won't work because it can't stack. I don't know what I was thinking. I had this whole system where the minecart was going to come up here. It was going to dispense one of the right kind. It was this whole thing. I don't even want to explain this whole thing right now because it won't work. It doesn't make any sense. Maybe this part of the circuit will stay. I don't know. It's probably going to have to change a lot, so I'm not going to explain it now unless I do end up keeping it. Oh, I won't lie, this was a blow to my confidence, but I took a few days to do some research, and after a while, I came up with this. Okay, so a lot's changed here. Let me do my best to explain this. We're going to start with the box sorters. Essentially, what a box sorter does is takes a key item out of your shulker box, and then will check all of these item filters. We have these ones, for example, down here for that key item. In this case, I'm just using the dye color of the shulker box, right? If it matches, it's then going to recombine the item with that shulker box and then put it into the correct chest here. And to show you this in action, you have to put the key item in the first slot there, and then what's really cool about this design is you can throw whatever else you want in there. So maybe I have these 3 items. Doesn't matter as long as the key item is in that first slot here. I'll go ahead and break this, and white is all the way at the very end. So what we should see is the shulker box gets recombined at the very end. I'll go ahead and throw this in. We'll swing around the back here. And there it is. It gets dropped right into here. So that's our organization system. Now I needed to figure out a way to connect these two, and we're still working on that. The problem we have with this right now is when you input something into the filters and it doesn't match any of these, it will not recombine the shulker right now. It'll just spit out the shulker box and the key item. To show you what I mean by that, if I take this same shulker box that we just did and bring it up here to where there is not a white die, and we come around the back here, see how it spits out the white die and the white shulker box not combined. So that's going to be an issue because we need to bring it over there, back over here, combined, so it can then try all of these filters. All right, the next big thing we added was this cart collection system and item transport. That's all of the orange that you see here. So this is a design by Il Mango. It works perfect because it's one wide tileable. Up here is a little bit different just to accommodate the different space needs, but they are essentially the same thing. To give you an example of this, I'll come over here. I added a little dispensing system over here just for testing. I also replaced the hopper right here because we need to use those key items. If the hopper was right here, it was then pulling the key item out of the shulker, which ruins the whole system here. So instead, what we have is just some powdered snow, and it seems to work just as well. I'll go ahead and click this one here. We'll swing around this way. You'll see the minecart is coming. It gets docked. Our hopper minecart over there throws the item into the item stream here, and then right as the minecart comes through, we see it'll get collected there. There's our white concrete. At the same time, we have this filtering system recycling the old shulker box that was in the vending station over here. Again, we still need to connect these two up, but you can see that is working. It just didn't have anything to filter in right here, so it spat it out. I'm also really proud of this little UI I have over here. In the original design, these were full blocks, but I've changed it so that they're slabs because it doesn't change anything here, and it makes these chests more accessible for my design. This is why it's good to know the design, know how it works, so you can change things like this and make it work better for your designs. So overall, this system is looking really good. We only need a couple more things, and then we're going to be done. Those two things are, again, the recombining of the shulker box here, and then sending it over into this hopper so we can check the final filters. Then all we need to do is loop the collection system back around. You can see I've calculated the amount of time it's going to take these hoppers to transfer into the dispenser. It's just about 36 ticks. So ideally what we want to happen is for the minecart to come around here, dispense its items into this. We have a 36 tick clock here that will activate the dispenser after 36 ticks, so it gets dispensed right as it gets transferred into it, and the minecart will get recycled down into our minecart dispenser right here. Oh, and one final thing, you might have noticed that I moved the dropper elevator over. I just did that because this is now more even, right? We don't have unnecessary observers right next to each other. Plus, I just think it looks nicer flush against the wall like this. So just a small little change in terms of the layout here as well. That was a lot. Hopefully everything made sense. Let's get to connecting up those box sorters. Over here is the item filter, right? And the way this is working is just by detecting a change in signal strength, right? So when we add one more item in here, the signal strength changes. This observer detects it, which tells us to dispense the shulker box, put whatever item we have back inside of there, and then crush it. Honestly, now that I'm looking at this, I'm pretty sure we just recreate the entire thing. We just don't put anything inside of the filter. Okay, so I'm not sure if this is going to work for us, but all I've done so far is recreate a slice here, but we haven't put anything inside of our filter. That way it will kind of be a catch-all, right? Because the signal strength here will change no matter what you put inside of this hopper here. So ideally what will happen is it'll take any items that weren't filtered out through here, and send it into this dropper. So we're going to take our trusty white dye shulker here. We'll send that into this. And let's see what happens. All right, that seems to have worked out for us. I can't believe that worked first try. Nice. I am seeing an issue here, though. We can test this pretty easily, so I'm going to filter for oak signs, let's say. Oh, oak signs are 16 stackables, so we can't do that. Let's filter for repeaters, I guess. So if we filter for repeaters, my guess as to what's going to happen here is it'll change this to 2, but it'll also change this to 1. So both of these are going to activate when we don't need both of them to activate. So I'm loading this shulker up with the repeater. I'm going to send it inside of this hopper, but first thing I'm going to do is /tick freeze so I can make sure I get over there in time to see what happens. All right. Now we'll do /tick unfreeze. And let's see if what I think is going to happen is going to happen. Yep. So you can see both slices activated. It doesn't seem like a huge issue. Let's see if it still got sorted into the right one. Ooh, it looks like it did. It did get sorted into the right one, right? Because that should be this one right here. Yeah. Okay. I'm pretty sure this is an easy fix for us, though. We can just replace this with a repeater, I think. So let's go ahead and do that. The only issue here is now there's going to be a bit of a delay. So actually, let's go ahead and replace that with a rail. Fix this redstone block here. And then I think that fixes our issue? Question? Let's go ahead and try it again. No, I think I can get over there fast enough. Let's see. Yeah, that fixes it. Okay, sweet. So this should work perfect for us. Okay, so I just extended this out one and added a comparator to detect and power this dispenser whenever something is passing through this hopper here, which should be fine. If I go ahead and place orange concrete in here, for example. Okay, actually, it seems like it's not fine. All right, so I was messing around with the recombiner extension here a little bit. This seems to be a pretty good solution for us. So all I'm doing here is detecting when an item is passing through this comparator, or sorry, this hopper here. Then we're just going to send a slower pulse around to this note block, which will then activate this dropper. And that's going to send it down a water stream into this hopper here. Let's go ahead and test it out. I'm going to go ahead and put our white dye shulker box inside of there. Let's see. Gets caught by our caught all, and out it goes. Okay, sweet. That seems to be working pretty well for us. This is my first time building these item transport things, and they make me very nervous because working with water around all this redstone is super, super scary. If one thing goes wrong, I could massively mess up a ton of work. Oh my god, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Oh, fortunately, there's nothing around there. Oh, that scares me so much. Okay, I think this should work. Let's see what happens with this white shulker, though. Ideal situation is it comes down, hits the dropper here, comes all the way down to our white filter right here. That's what we want to happen. So, in fact, let's do the whole gambit. Let's go ahead and put this in here. I'll start with this hopper or else it won't detect it. So let's go ahead and put that in there. We should see this get transported up. Should get caught by the filter here. Awesome. Dropped out there. Down it goes. Down it goes. Into that hopper. All right. Moment of truth. Come on. And it gets filtered into here. Oh, that was so sick. Okay. I'm going to try it a couple more times just to test this, right? Just to make sure some random momentum doesn't make it get stuck. But I think this works. Just to show you this whole thing. Again, we don't have the automatic dispensing yet. That's the last thing we need to work on. But I'll go ahead and manually dispense it. There it is right there. We go ahead and click this button. It'll get collected at that hopper there. Activates our dropper elevator. At the same time, we're getting our retrieval item. Our minecart picks it up, and then shortly after, we should see... Actually, I think it's already happened. Nope, there it is, right there. We should see our shulker box getting recycled in there. Everything is working. The last section we need to do is the recycling of the minecart. and the dispensing of the new shulker into this dispenser here. Yeah, so at this point I thought we were basically finished. I'd just complete that minecart loop and do our final showcase. And that's when I realized we have a ton of issues. They took me so many hours to comb through and solve, so here's just a few highlights. This is the most ridiculous thing ever, but I don't care, I think it'll work. So it didn't work out the way I thought it was gonna work out this time. Oh my gosh, I can't believe that. I forgot to fill these all up with the minecarts. Maybe if there are no items inside of the chest minecart, when it breaks here, it ends up going inside of this hopper instead of this hopper. I actually kind of like that the minecart gets outputted because I can rename the minecarts and then have it say empty or something like that. Did not work. The shulker box is here, but the dispensing didn't work. Okay, I think this clock is just going too fast, so maybe this is dumb, but I just changed it to the number of hoppers in the line, which is 6. Oh, I think we are having some problems with this. I just found the red shulker box down here. Okay, so nothing special, I've just encased it in glass. Where is our minecart, though? Why is it up here? Oh, I see an issue. It is not making the full trek, is what I'm seeing right now. Oh, okay, but now it's too fast. Oh, is it really still not at enough of an angle? Come on, that looks like an angle to me. Oh, come on, that looks good to me. Okay. Oh, and there's the brown one we ordered before? I can't believe that. Why is this not working? Oh my god, I was missing a rail here. Oh my god, that was confusing me so much. There's almost definitely a better way of doing this, but with my amateur brain, this is what we're gonna do for now. Both of these are activating for some reason. Oh, it's a flaw in how I'm doing this. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed that montage of my pain. After I solved all those issues, it was finally working, so I can show you the completed build now. Y'all, we did it. It's done. It's actually done. And last thing before the showcase, if you would like to build this for yourself, I'll post the schematic and a world download in the description below. We will do a couple of setup things after the showcase, so stick around for that. There's some technical details that you're going to want to know before you try to build this, especially if you're going to build it on an SMP. I've changed these from wool to just be shulker boxes, and the great part about this is that we can open up the shulker boxes and see what's going to be inside of them. So these are sort of our display models, if you will. We then have this shulker box, which is the one that's going to be dispensed to us. So if I want to buy this red one, for example, I click push to buy. Wait a second, and out it comes. That will then get refilled, so right now the minecart is going around the track, picking up a new red one for us, which will shortly thereafter be dispensed. There we go, so we have another red one. And of course, if you want a different one, so for example, maybe I want this sort of light blue one here, we'll click the Noteblock. It won't get dispensed to us, but we will go through, recycle our red shulker box, which I believe is down in this line here. There it goes, so that gets recycled, and at the same time, we are dispensing our new light blue shulker to us, which of course, we could go ahead and buy that one if we wanted to get that one too. Our minecarts are getting constantly recycled here, so we don't need to worry about missing out on any of these. In fact, you just saw one go inside of there. And the same goes for all of these minecart unloaders here. You only need to put one minecart with hopper in each one of these droppers here, and they will constantly get recycled, so you don't have to worry about filling these up either. And with that, we have a fully functioning vending machine. It's pretty big for a vending machine, I guess, but in terms of storage tech and everything it's doing, I actually think it's pretty compact. It's not that big. Oh, and it just makes me so happy to click buy here and get it dispensed out and then watch it get refilled. Looking around here at the back is just like, it's a great feeling. Yep, there it is, my first ever original design. Now let's get into the technical details. I want to start with some things I plan to add, so maybe you could add them yourself.
and then we'll get into the setup. A couple of things I want to add are a loading animation while it's waiting to dispense it. It takes it about 20 seconds to dispense a new one, which can feel like a long time, but if you have something happening here, it actually doesn't feel too bad. I also want to create a better system to deal with when we run out of shulker boxes. At the moment, I've just put a little empty slip in here, and I'll show you what happens if we run out of pink boxes. So I've left one pink box in there. If I order it, it should come just fine. There it is. But if I order it again, this time we'll get this empty slip here. Now, this is great. It lets the user know that this is empty, but the problem with this at the moment is if I try to order a new shulker, it's not going to do anything because our minecart is only activated if a shulker is inside of it. So at this point, you'd have to manually input a new shulker and then it would be able to work again. I have a couple of ideas of how we could fix this, but for now, this is a pretty good solution for me. If you want to see some of those fixes, again, you're going to have to check out the SMP episode when that comes out. Okay, so if you're building this, especially in your survival world, there are a few things you should know. The first major thing is that this build is somewhat directional, and that's just because of this little circuit right here. Now, if you're pretty redstone savvy, this would be an easy fix. Basically, the issue here is that this track needs to be facing in either the positive Z or positive X direction, because when I remove this, we need it to default to this track right here, and tracks default to positive axes. Now, if you really need the track to be facing in a negative direction, let's say this way or this way, it's a pretty simple fix. You just need to change how this clock is set up a little bit. But as is, you'll need to make sure that this is facing in either a positive Z or positive X direction. And just for reference, the facade of the building should be opening up to the north direction or the west direction if you don't want to have to change anything there. The next really important thing is that you use unstackable items inside of these droppers here. I'm just using wooden shovels. It's important that we use unstackables because they'll give you a signal strength too, and that is needed in order to reach these target blocks up here. As far as the hopper clocks go, I'm using 6 items in this green circuit over here. We are using 7 items for the track switching hopper clock here. And we're using 13 items for the docking station here. For the minecart unloaders here, you just need 1 minecart with hopper inside of each one of these droppers here, and also make sure that it goes dropper and then dispenser. For the filters, I've created this nice little shaft here so you can access this in survival. For each of the filters, make sure you're using 21 filler items. In this case, I'm just using orange candles, and 1 key item. This is what you'll place inside of each shulker box. And I think that's the last thing. So again, just remember that you're putting whatever key items you set up over there as the first item inside of your shulker box here. And that'll allow it to sort through all the box sorters and recycle things when you don't buy them. Hopefully that all made sense. If you have any questions, go ahead and drop them down in the comments. If you had any feedback, go ahead and drop those in the comments as well. I appreciate feedback a ton. And I want to give a special shout out to Inspector Talon for his minecart series. This really helped me out. You can see I did all of his challenges over here. And the Storage Tech Discord for helping me out, especially with this section over here and getting a lot of these components like the dropper elevator to work when I just couldn't figure them out. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. Let me know your feedback, your thoughts, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace!